Good evening and welcome to the January 26th Committee of the Whole meeting. I'll be your chair this evening, Councillor McKenna. We'll start with our land acknowledgement. On January 26th, we acknowledge that this sacred land of which Smith Falls is now located has been the site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We're grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We're mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. I'll apologize a little bit. My throat is fine. It's just, it's a little cranky today. As you are aware, Councillor Brennan and Robinson will not be joining us tonight, and CEO Morris is joining us remotely. I call the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. Looking at the agenda, I have a motion that the January 26th Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be approved as circulated. Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Quinn. Any changes? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest, conflict of interest, general nature thereof? Seeing none. There's no minutes to approve, no delegations. I think we have one CAO director report. I think Director McMunn has a report today. The weary snow removing champion.
There was a couple things. There was the PXO here, then there was one more, Carrie.
Okay.
An update on the PXO first.
Okay.
Can't remember what the other was. Good evening, members of council and Mr. Chair. Yeah, I wanted to update council on the PXO out here on Church Street at Beckwith. You may have noticed that we put two additional flashing beacons on there that are integrated into the controller. So they integrate and they align with when the lights come on down lower on the two poles on either side. These ones are up in the mast arms that come out from those poles. There's signs on both sides. You see a little guy walking and they're right adjacent to that. So we were able to cover those costs in some surplus monies that we had from the other PXOs that we installed this past summer. So it didn't put us over budget. I think the cost came in at around $3,000 to retrofit that PXO, but in my opinion, it brings some additional visibility to that crossing for people that use it. I've used it myself a couple of times, and I think it's a lot more visual the way it's currently set up. So
That was the one.
that's the one. Okay, that's it. Yep.
And again, thanks to your crew for the snow removal. It's I know it's still underway, but things are open. I've been around town. It looks good. Big job.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's fortunately we didn't get the blast of snow that was forecasted over the weekend. Last Thursday, it was looking like we might have received upwards of 40 to 50 centimeters of snow this past weekend, and obviously those weather patterns changed a little bit. I believe some areas did receive more than we got, but we were fortunate. So still digging out from it nonetheless.
Do you have a sense how our budget's doing on snow removal yet?
Not great. Winter set in early this year and the latter part of 2025, and it's been pretty relentless. So
yeah, I agree. Thank you very much. We have no consent reports. We have no in-camera. So we're going to move to 10.1 priority issue, the CIP annual monitoring and program activation with Marie Elmsley. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As in my report, CIP 2025 saw 7 projects approved that addressed facade accessibility and interior improvements. 4 projects are complete, 2 are nearing completion, and 1 has not started yet. These projects represent just shy of $359,000 in improvement costs, of which the town's investment is just over $147,000, or 41%. As the remaining 3 projects become complete, these numbers may change to reflect the actual cost of works is different from the estimates. The town's investment was similar in 2024 at 44%. In 2023, the town's investment was 24% of the total cost of works. This was a little skewed because of funding for the largest project was disproportionate when compared to the other CIP programs. Although there are no new affordable units created as a result of the CIP program this year, it is anticipated that the change in 2026, due to the amendments made earlier this month, will provide increased financial incentives through tax rebates for affordable units, so we hope to see some more this year. 2026 pre-consultations are already underway, and we're excited about some of the ideas that are coming forward. We're consulting with heritage designated property owners of both commercial properties and residential heritage properties, others for accessibility upgrades, and with a developer for new affordable and accessible units. To that end, staff recommend that Council officially open all 15 programs of the Community Improvement Program for 2026. Thanks. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Mary. I agree with the recommendation to have all the streams open for this year. And I was wondering, for the work that hasn't started yet from last year, at what point does that application become void if the work doesn't begin?
I don't really know at what point it would become void. I can tell you I did speak with the owner prior to Christmas, through you, Chair. And they do intend to complete this project. I guess if those plans change, we'll need to discuss that further.
Mayor Penk.
Yeah, thanks, Marie. Very comprehensive update, and we get this every year, so it's always good to see where the focus has been largely by the community in reaction to the availability of the CIP. And one that really stands out, I think, really is the accessibility improvements. And this is something we've had available for a number of years. And 2025 is by far the most funds leverage for accessibility improvements. So hopefully the business community continues to see that opportunity and take advantage of the funding that's available here.
I was going to say the same thing. It's really good to see that one, and I agree. I hope people take advantage of that wonderful opportunity. So the recommendation is that council accept the report for information, and that'll come up at the upcoming council meeting. We'll pass a resolution to that effect. And I'm seeing that we all are in agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Director Dauber, do you want to lead us into that second draft budget, please, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council. We have 2 parts. First is the report, 2026-11, and the recommendations that be received for information and discussion. So really, the report itself is twofold. One is to introduce the second presentation, which officially and legislatively is defined as the mayor's budget being proposed on January 26th to meet the February 1st deadline. And the second is to bring feedback from the survey back to council for the results. The budget items we'll discuss through the budget presentation, but I do want to touch on a couple of items within the feedback from the survey, if I could. Last year we received 241 submissions. This year we were down to 117. Now that sounds like that's I'm saying that as a negative. It's certainly not, because 117 is a really good representation. 2025 was just an exceptional year for how much participation we did receive in that. But 117 it's a very high number, and in my experience, that's the very engaged community. It did skew a few things differently. The first, the resident status, 6% renting and 94% owning. Last year, it was actually the opposite. It was 87% that were renting and 13% that were owning. So that difference between the 241 and the 117 certainly shows the demographic of the people that didn't participate this year, and then those that did participate. The age ranges didn't vary extremely, but I did see that there was a drop in the over 65. A drop in the 51 to 64 range from 29 to 26%, and an increase in the younger range, the 19 to 30, almost a double the amount of participation from that range group. So we did see a bit of a younger crowd participating in the survey as well. Length of the residency, taxes and service levels, there wasn't a great change, just a couple percent, but for the most part, they were very similar to what they were last year. There was a good amount of participation in what residents felt should happen as far as the taxes and service level. As I said, there wasn't too much of a change within that, with a 60% looking at either an increase with inflationary or increase based on inflationary amounts, as well as an increase in property taxes with enhanced service levels, which was very similar to what residents were looking for last year. How to deal with rising costs, again, they weren't too much different. The increased property taxes at 5% was exactly the same as last year, with more looking into increasing existing user fees and also a combination of property tax and fee increases. The top 5 service priorities were exactly the same 5: roads and sidewalks, fire services, water, police, parks and outdoor spaces, and they were exactly the same order as they were last year. So there hasn't been change with the residents in what their priorities are. In the service level satisfaction, we saw similar results to last year, maybe a little bit less on the satisfied and a little bit higher on the dissatisfied, but not to a great degree, and can certainly be explained through the decrease in participation. I hadn't planned on going through any of the respondents, but I would be happy, and staff are here to take any questions that council might have to do with the input and the respondents' notes that they provided.
Comments or questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And I really enjoyed reading through the comments. I think we're covering quite a bit of it. Lots of work still to do, which will line up for next council to tackle in the next budget, but lots of things that we're already working on. So I felt very encouraged. And I was also really impressed with the amount of detail. So the engagement, like you said, is really high. Thank you.
I was looking for themes, and if there was one that kind of weaved its way through the comments, it was around cost of policing seems to pop up. And again, for the next council, it's always under the radar, but it came up here. I saw several times that people commented on the cost of policing and looking for what other options do we have, or how do we make it more affordable. I'm really grateful for the people that took the time to write those comments. It's one thing to get the pie chart but without the context or what people are saying. So I really, like Councillor Miller, I do appreciate the good, the bad, and the ugly in there, and grateful that people took the time to respond. And I know Council has read all of those comments, and they are helpful in our thinking. So thank you. Yes.
Through the chair, and the comments from previous years as well as this one will be available with the next term of council in order to see what the public feedback was and how it did change. And you're right, there in every community when there is feedback, it's pretty common to see policing as one of the top priorities. I've seen it both from municipalities that have OPP and as well as, and this is my first municipality I've worked at that had a police force. So it is interesting to see that there are very similar comments on both sides. Sometimes wondering how much of that is the grass is greener on the other side.
Is there an opportunity to share it with our communications person? Because there was some, people are just looking for some question around replacing lead pipes. Like there's some really basic questions. I don't know, I'm not to respond, but if there were themes that the communications people saw in their ads going forward that might help answer some of those questions, would be helpful.
Well, if I can, this senior management team is quite an engaged team, and I know there's been a bit of discussion on some of the comments that have come back. So I would anticipate a good, robust discussion at the senior management table, and then see what kind of ideas can come out of that. If council would like information beyond that for feedback down the road, then that's certainly something we could look at.
Sure. Mayor Panko.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And just the one pie chart that caught my attention really was how to deal with rising costs. And the biggest recommendation or suggestion from our residents was increase existing user fees, was 44%. Only 5% would be eager, I guess, to see a property tax increase, and about 33%. So a combination of property tax increases and user fees. Can you comment a bit on how we set our user fees? Because we have a broad spectrum, but I would see the risk of increasing fees too much to gain additional revenue would be the ultimate reduction in the usage of our facilities and potentially the risk that our fees could decline. Fee revenue could decline. Is that valid, or your own experience about increasing fees to try and offset costs, or of course taxes being our primary source of revenue?
Sure. Through the chair, yes. I think recreation facilities is a perfect example. And I need to step on the director's toes here, but I know that there's a fine balance between raising the fees to try and ensure that the users are paying for as much of the portion of the usage of those facilities, thereby cutting down as much as possible on the taxes for the residents that might not be using the facilities. But when those fees rise and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a position where you're competing with a neighboring municipality, and then it causes problems because then there could be loss of revenues. Garbage tags has always been a very big controversial subject where the worry if the fees go up too much, the people might start throwing the garbage in the ditches as opposed to paying for the tags, which sometimes has happened, but most of the time it hasn't. There are always those various concerns as to how much can we put up the fees to make it fair, and fair from the sense that people paying for some of those fees through the taxes might not necessarily need those services. So then the theory becomes, let the people that are using those services pay for them. But at what point does that become a burden? What point does that become hard to manage? I think at this point, and I know that through the budget process, staff have looked at the fees, have increased the fees in the areas where they felt that they could be increased, feel that they've got a good sense of which fees can be increased. And it's certainly a topic I think that we discussed in more detail when we hit 2027, moving towards full cost recovery for cemetery. If you remember from the report that came forward, we have a 3-year plan to phase it in and then come to that final amount where we should be for the fees. And then at that point, looking at all the fees, establishing that they're correct, and then looking at a CPI increase every year moving forward. So I think it's been a work in progress, and I think we've made a lot of progress at Smith Falls, and I think we're getting there.
I guess the second piece of that would simply be considering water and wastewater fees as a bit of a contrast to tax revenue, and the fact that we're using tax revenue to support the water fees.
Yes.
I don't know if I'd want to read into that users would like to see an increase in their water fees to reduce the impact on the tax burden, but that's maybe a conversation we'll have later this year.
Yeah, through the chair, exactly. Smith Falls is unique on two aspects of that. One, the fact that the tax does subsidize the water facility and the water usage. It's becoming less and less common. Smith Falls is not the only municipality to do it. However, those municipalities are becoming less and less as the province seeks for water and wastewater to become revenue neutral. To operate on its own. The other piece that's unique with Smith Falls, and I know I've mentioned this to council before, I'm saying this more to the public, that we're in a unique position is the difference between the number of tax properties and the number of water customers, properties that are paying water bill. They're almost identical. They're very, very close. So it's kind of use this theory that if you're going to pay X amount of dollars per year, let's say if you're gonna pay $4,000 a year, and if it's going to be $3,000 for taxes and $1,000 for water, does it matter if it's $2,000 for taxes and $2,000 for water? While our rates for water may be higher than other municipalities, in the end, the bill and what you're paying to the municipality, to the town, can be the same. Also recognizing that it's a unique water system that we operate in Smith Falls with higher capital outlay, higher fixed costs. So yeah, to your point, yes, exactly. We will be coming back with more information. We've engaged Hempson, who came with an initial report and are doing a more detailed report that should be coming back later in the spring to council to present some options and some deeper analysis so we can understand, how does it affect the resident to increase the water rates, how much of their tax bill will come down, and will it offset, and will it equal each other?
Thank you.
Councillor Quinn.
So speaking about water rates, I had a very interesting conversation while I was at Roma with the mayor of Carleton Place. And our new water treatment plant is 15 years old. Would it be about that? And we paid $38 million for it. If we were to build it today, we'd be looking at 100. That's just the way prices are going. So you know what? We spent the money. We have been told that by some that, maybe we overbuilt, but we've built so we have great capacity. And we spent the money at the right time before the prices went crazy. So we have to really be happy about that because, well, like I said, talking with the mayor of Carleton Place, they're looking at $145 million or something to upgrade, so it's a hard bullet to bite, but it could be a whole lot worse. So thank you. And your report is wonderful. I love to read it. I love to see, and yes, the replacing the lead pipes. I do think we need to become easier for people to find out about these things. It's just like on the weekend, I had an issue with someone and they had their water backup. And the clerk has taken care of the issue for me, which was wonderful, because if you phone into the town on the weekend, you don't get a number unless you know exactly where to go. So the clerk has taken care of that so people can phone the town number on the weekend and get the emergency number. So there's things like that we just look at. How we replace lead pipes could be one of them. Just make the whole system easier. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further comments, we'll get into the meat of it, I guess, of your operating capital budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what I'm going to be doing mostly is focusing on the changes from our December 8th meeting. Just to reiterate, and I'm repeating myself to council, but really wanting to speak to the public. December 8th meeting wasn't necessarily bringing a proposal of a levy increase. Really what staff was trying to do was to present the pressures within the town and present that information to council, which at the time, if we were to move forward with it, which was not the intention on December 8th, it was just to present, we were looking at about 8.3%, which not surprisingly, council was not in favor of. So staff went back and did some work and looked at where revenues that could be identified, as well as operational savings. And that's mostly what we're going to be talking about here tonight. Next slide, please. So the changes from the first draft, there was considerable savings that were sought out and seen in operating by decreasing the tax levy by just under $785,000, while the capital decreased the reliance on the tax-based reserve by 1.7 million. And I'm speaking of very specifically that way because one of the pressures from the November meeting that we had was the fact that we're looking at our reserves, water, wastewater, and tax-based reserves on the basis of how much are we approving in the budget that's going to commit dollars to those reserves and making sure that we don't overspend. I'm sorry, I just forgot my notes over here. Excuse me. So staff went back with those expectations and the need to remedy both those situations. I had all my notes prepared and they didn't print, so unfortunately I'll just go back to my computer and find out those notes.
Lots of time.
Are these your notes here?
No, they're not. Thank you. Okay. So we'll go to the next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
So presented before you in the next few slides are the high-level changes that affected the budget in order to bring that portion down of the operating budget. There was an increase in the tax levy related to assessment growth. Now that MPAC has provided us with their 2026 assessment information, it allows us to confidently add an additional $60,000 to the results of the growth portion of that CVA change, which moved it from $250,000 presented on December 8th to $310,000 in this iteration of the budget. There was a higher supplemental billing revenue of more than $54,000. This reflects updated permit activity that was obtained between December 8th and now, and includes projects such as a long-term care facility. And just for council's information, that long-term care facility got its occupancy permit in December. The cutoff, and just for the public's information as well, MPAC looks at the cutoff as October 31st, and any occupancy that's giving after that will not be on the next year's roll. It didn't make it because it was given occupancy in December, so we'll be seeing that through supplemental billing. So that's why we're seeing this larger increase in the supplemental bills. There was a small increase in community programs related to the community grants to true it up to the percentage as part of the policy of the amount that's contributed to that fund. There was, and that was unfortunately a negative change, as well as a negative change with the increase of $11,000 in shared services. The county finalized their budget. The December 8th was based on the first draft, and there was a higher paramedic service cost compared to the first draft, and there was also an addition of a new $5,000 tourist agreement that was added between then and now. In the admin side, there was an increase in investment revenue, and that's supported by stable market rates and anticipated higher average monthly cash balancing throughout the year. So on one hand, we're dealing with cost for debenturing some of the projects. On the other hand, we will have higher bank deposits monthly, so we'll be able to increase our investment revenues. So there is a little bit of a relief from that. There was a decrease in fire service costs, primarily due to reductions in digital mapping services and a small number of other smaller adjustments. adjustments. There was a capital project in fire for that digital mapping, so we removed it from the operating budget and just had it appear on the capital side. The Community Services Administration saw a small decrease in salaries as we adjusted the COLA level from 2.2 to the finalized information from Stats Canada 2.0. So there was some savings in there, but it was offset by costs related to economic development and tourism initiatives that were moving over to community services as a part of the restructure of economic development and tourism. Next slide, please. And we can see that on the other side. We'll just get down to it in a moment. Parks saw a decrease in property repair costs. One of the biggest changes was there was a revised funding approach for daycare services. So staff reviews the funding agreement that we currently have with Lerner County, and we were able to move daycare from a tax levy subsidized program to a revenue neutral program. So the daycare will be running in 2026 as a revenue neutral department. So that ended up saving us $115,000 of that budget. Economic development expenses have been transferred to community services as per the reorganization mentioned before. And community service event costs have been consolidated under community services, resulting in a reduction in the overall special events budget. If council has any questions, I'm reading off my notes, so please interrupt me.
Okay, does that after each slide, we'll just stop, but Councilor Miller did have a question.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. So I just wanted to understand, I understand in our restructuring that community services, that our community events is going to community services, and the costs associated with community events is going. What caught my eye was some of the tourism budget was following that as well. And I'm not sure if I'm understanding that correctly. I guess my concern comes from the fact that we're actively recruiting for a new active and tourism manager. And I want to make sure we're not leaving that person with nothing to work with when, you know, there's so much going on in town right now.
So through the chair, what moved over besides salaries for staffing was funds for events such as the Canada Day event, Truth and Reconciliation, Celebration of Lights, Winter Canal activations. They moved over to community services. Within tourism, the manager decreased the special events budget, and you may be seeing that as well. The only reason I'm saying this, so you understand exactly the full depth of the change. That was decreasing it from an earlier anticipated or increased ask from 2025 and dropping it back down. So the ask in December was 40,000. It's been dropped down to 14,000, and we'll continue to include bike nights on Beckwith, Art Walk, Holiday Train, Writers Festival, and then a small amount for contingency, and that'll remain within tourism.
May I ask?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So when you say the ask, what are you referring to? And are you saying that we're dropping that line item from 40 to 14 and we're going to cover all those things in $14,000?
Yes, exactly. On December 8th, the special events budget had been increased from 2025 as a part of the seek to reduce the operating budget. One of the changes was the decrease from 40,000 to 14,000, and just to give you some numbers, Bike Nights on Beckwith has an $8,000 budget of that 14. Art Walk has 2,000, the Holiday Train of 1,000, Writers Festival of 2,000, and then the contingency portion of $1,000, and that adds up to 14,000.
Thank you.
Did I hear a mention of the Spirit of the Drum powwow in that list?
No, there's Truth and Reconciliation in that list, but powwow is actually a separate event. It already was with community services.
Okay.
So powwow is covered in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Not to harp on us, but
No.
so what does that leave us in tourism?
Dollar wise?
Yeah, outside of salaries, how much wiggle room? Because there is no manager right now to make that call, right? So just want to be really cautious that we're not putting someone with no ability to do anything tourism wise.
The only change in tourism was the one line, the special events.
Dropping from 40 to 14.
Yes. Thank you.
So the question is there an operational budget for the tourism and at Dev? I guess it's all rolled up in one now? Or it always
I'm
was?
not, no, historically we had two separate
Right.
pieces of paper on that front.
Yeah, so the new manager is, and I hope I'm understanding correctly the question. Is there room, or the new manager would be listed under economic development. There's been no change in the salaries within tourism, so the capacity is there to be able to operate the department. There are still some economic development activities within economic development, but the ones that are related to community events. Those, from my understanding, those are the pieces that moved over to community services. So there is a budget for the new manager to come in and operate.
Okay, so I guess, Mr. Chair, I'm not comfortable dropping that budget line from 40 to 14. I think we're running that really lean. Our budget is not very big to start with, so.
So why don't we make note of that and come back
Thank you.
when we get through this and say, I guess we might say put it in the parking lot, and we'll come right back to that at the end and see where the rest of council stands.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Heritage House had a small decrease in expenses, again related to the COLA increase, dropping from 2.2 to 2. Planning saw a redistribution of the workload of the new administration person, being a little bit heavier on the building department, thereby bringing a small saving to the planning department. Now, the big pieces are the next few here. Public Works, engineering, and the utilities went back and looked for savings that they could obtain while ensuring that they can maintain the service levels, so we're not dropping service levels from 2025. So there's not necessarily a lot of details in what those lines were, but in Public Works, staffing lines were reduced where possible, with an emphasis on maintaining service levels. Increases that were sought to maintenance line, such as materials for bridges, catch basin maintenance, street light equipment repairs. A number of those lines have been deferred to come back in another year when there's not such strain to come forward to increase those maintenance lines. Engineering costs saw a decrease primarily due to lower software costs and legal expenditures. So that's where they got their savings from. And then utilities, on the next slide. I'm sorry, environmental services, I skipped over them, my apologies. Showed an increase in revenues. Staff went back and did some further calculations, and their change were driven by higher garbage day sales and updated recycling contract revenues, or review of those revenues, and realizing that they would be able to budget higher revenues safely in there. Utility staff, again, completed a detailed review of their budget lines and identified savings that, again, would not reduce current service levels. As a result, they were able to lower the reliance on the tax subsidy, tax-based subsidy, by over $100,000 across several lines, such as building maintenance costs, review of their utility costs, sludge disposal, valve maintenance contractors, safety equipment, and a number of other lines that together saw the savings to be able to get their overall reliance down. The next slide just shows the distribution among the departments and how that played out from the first one. in the changes that happened. For the net expenses of the distribution of the tax dollars, and I emphasize the net. That doesn't include the portions that would be collected for water and sewer on the water and sewer bills. This is the reliance on the tax levy and how that's distributed.
So just to repeat that, in that pie chart with net expenses, it's just the tax supported portion of water and wastewater.
Yes.
And we know that that budget is higher,
Yes.
but that's through the fees charged for, okay.
Exactly.
And is there any other examples like that with user fees?
The rest of them I didn't pull that. Yeah, all of them are. So like we certainly collect the charges for the arena, for the recreation, and these are the net expenses. So this is just the portion on the actual tax levy and how that's distributed.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So the final results are summarized in this table tonight, and they include the columns are the final draft 2025 draft budget figures on the left, the December 8th first draft numbers. Now, the one change in here, and it'll make sense in 2 slides down from here, why I'm specifically saying it this way, is to adjust those numbers with a 4% target rate. With the feedback we received in the December 8th meeting, the input that council did give was ranging between 3 and 5%. So staff came back with a target of 4%. And we've adjusted that top number, property tax, within the first draft and the second draft to 22,081,315. That'll become important in 2 slides from now, why I'm harping on that, being specific about that. Then you've got your second draft numbers beside the first draft, and then the change from the 2 presentations. And then finally, the increase overall of this presentation tonight and what percentage increase it is or decrease the change from the 2025 budget. The next slide is adding in the same information for protective services, community services, and economic development. And then next slide. And as staff moved forward with that 4% target levy, the December 8th presentation was adjusted in the tax levy revenue to meet the targets. This is where it becomes important, because before the number at the bottom was 0 because we weren't proposing an actual change on December 8th. Now that we have a target of 4%, when we take that December 8th number and tap it at that 4% or cap it, what falls out is 909,608. So out of that meeting came a target, a tangible target, but it also showed staff what we needed to reduce in order to get to that 4% target level. So as mentioned before, staff came back with savings of $784,609, which isn't exactly what was needed. That shows that there is an unfunded or a number to be adjusted for $135,000. Going back to the why I kept emphasizing service levels and making sure that staff were aware that they weren't reducing service levels, and the reductions, the increases in revenues as well as the reductions. What ended up falling out of the $135,000, what this ended up pointing to was the locate permit technician proposal for $85,000 and the railway museum contribution of $50,000. And this will be part of a conversation, and then we would add the line for $36,000 to increase the tourism budget. So as outlined here, the 4%, if it's added for the other 2 projects, if council was to move forward with that, the potential increase at that point would be 4.64%. And then I'd have to calculate the 36,000. So I think that would probably be pretty close to 5% in total. And that'll be certainly part of the discussion, and where staff's looking for direction from council at the end of this presentation.
Okay, so I'm going to make a note to come back to that unfunded, those two items that are unfunded at this point.
Yes,
Okay.
please, thank you. Okay, next slide, please. So this is just a recap of the staff changes from the December 8th meeting. Nothing has been added to it, and all those positions are still on the table. But I just wanted to emphasize with council that nothing else had come in as far as staffing goes. Next slide, please. So we're going to turn our attention to the capital budget, and the biggest news is the recent good news announcement from the province of over $13 million in funding, which is much appreciated and very, very welcome. I wanted to say congratulations to Paul McMahon and his team for a lot of hard work that was put into this with the backing of the CAO and input from the CAO. Congratulations on that. It was a huge achievement, and would certainly appreciative what the significance of that and how that affects the financial side is the ability to avoid the debenture that had been proposed for that project. And to put some parameters around it or quantify it, we had proposed a large portion of that to be debt, which was, we were looking at repayments of about $800,000 a year, which would have amounted to a 3.8% levy increase, so full 3.8% levy increase on its own just to service the debt. And now that's avoided with this announcement. So very good news indeed.
But I will make a note that at the Roma conference, Smith Falls had a delegation with the parliamentary assistant, Mr. Sandhu, in the Ministry of Infrastructure. And we started off with a big thank you to the ministry for that grant. We acknowledge the hard work of our staff and putting those quality applications in. And so it set the tone for the rest of that delegation, and I'm sure we'll find other ways of saying thank you. There might be I wouldn't be surprised if there's a formal ribbon cutting or something in the future when we break ground, but the ministry did hear loud and clear from the gang from Smith Falls how grateful we were for that. It's a huge grant, it's huge.
It certainly is, absolutely. So the November 24th presentation of the capital projects, when we did look at the financing portion, just as a recap, the water and wastewater portions were fully funded without overusing the reserves related. But the tax-based capital reserve would have seen an overcommitment of $1.7 million. So that was a large adjustment that was needed. Review of the outstanding projects. So first of all, step one, a review of the outstanding projects to make sure that we had the right amount in there. As the committable amounts, saw a reduction in that number of $200,000. So we had a clarification, and we were able to recognize that we had $200,000 in the coffers more than we had originally estimated in November. And then staff were able to reduce the commitment on task-based reserves another $1.5 million to meet targets through a reduction of budget, redistribution of grants, and deferral of projects. Now, redistribution of grants sounds like something you kind of just throw out, but really what that was is we had some other dollars for the OCIF funding, just over $500,000 that we were able to inject into the 2026. So we did see some changes in some of the projects and how they were funding. It took a little bit of time because we have to make sure with OCIF and the gas tax, they both have very different regulations and rules for how they're used. So staff went back and reworked those grants. So the big changes that we saw were fire reduction in the estimated cost for the tanker replacement of $50,000. Bellamy Farms Phase 3 Park, through the redistribution of the grants, we were able to add in just over $40,000 to that project for grant funding. The Parks Enclosed Trailer, $35,000, that one was deferred. Lower reach pay structure, again, another distribution of a grant Abbott Lambert Gateway, that was taking that project and spreading it over 2 years. Originally it had $110,000, and the slides will show it. The slides that are coming up will show these. But that was taking the project and splitting it in half and doing it over a 2-year period, just deferring some of the costs to 2027. The window replacement, we spoke to some people from the library. They're making some decisions and having some discussions as to whether to go with vinyl and wood. I think I have that correct. So they've deferred that project to 2027 to allow some time to make some decisions and plan that project out. Then the roads, the Connecting Link Fund, that was a project proposed based on available grants. The grant application will be going out shortly. It was realized that at that point, the project is not likely to start at the very earliest until the end of the year. So we ended up moving the funding for that project into 2027. So that was a huge portion of the savings we were able to find. And then the roads traffic controllers, that was a redistribution of grants. So that project will be 100% grant funded. Next slide, please.
So on that slide, Director Dabber, I'm going to ask to come back to the Gateway budget for Lombard and Abbott when we get to the end. So I'm added that to my little list of 3 items so far.
And luckily we have the director here who can speak
Right.
more.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Just on the library, so window replacement is deferred, but is the back door project still in the budget?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
And it'll show that in a slide coming up.
Oh, sorry. Thank
No,
you.
that's okay. That's no problem. Okay, next slide. So this is a summary of the budget. What I will point out and didn't necessarily highlight here is towards the left, you have the 2026 projects. We started out at 29 million. We're about a quarter of that's been knocked off through the proposals, the largest being the Connecting Link, moving it over to 2027. So now we're down to just about 22 million. So we reduced the overall budget line, and the two columns over, the capital reserve, it was well over $4 million of the use of that. Now it's been knocked down to 3.3 million. Next slide, please. Sorry, I got to catch up on my side. So I've highlighted the yellow areas where those changes are from the November 24th meeting. The top, you see the tanker replacement changed to 550,000. On the left towards the bottom, that's the enclosed trailer purchase being deferred. The Bellamy Farms to the right is the injection of funding, grant funding for that, and then the Lower Reach play structure for the 195,000. That's the 195 coming off the tax reserve and moving over to full funding. Next slide, please. And right in the middle there, you see the yellow highlight. There's the window replacement. Right above it is the back door replacement. It's still on the list. And then the trunk main on the right shows them move from the debt to grant. Please note that 4.25 million is just related to the estimated 2026 activities, and then that'll repeat in continuing years until we make use of the full $13.3 million. Next slide, please. And then again, Public Works, the Connecting Link moving over to 2027, and then traffic controllers moving from reliance on the tax reserves over to the gas tax funding. Next slide, please.
So just on the trunk main water tower, we're doing it in phases. I understand that. We'll divide that grant up. Is it 2 years we'll have it done, or is it 3?
Yeah, through the chair, we have a 3-year runway for that project.
And on top, does the 13.3 cover all of it? We hope.
No, it's through the chair. It's 73% funding through the province and the federal government. So worst case scenario, we would be allocating the, what was it, 4 million and whatever that number was. But if the project comes in under what we anticipate the budget to be, then the province and the feds will pick up their 73% cost. We would pick up the difference. Trusting that makes sense.
It does. Mayor Penko.
Just related question, Director McMahon. Anticipating inflationary pressures each year, the cost of that project could rise on a unit basis. You say we have up to 3 years to complete it. Are you giving consideration to tightening that up, either a year or two, or is 3 just the way to go for a project of that magnitude?
Me? Oh, right. Yeah, we could certainly look to incorporating what we feel would be phase 2 and phase 3 into 1 year. For 2026, we're looking at phase 1 being the easement that's behind the Canopy Gross plant on Hershey. So that stretch along there from the tower out to Lorne, and then from that easement down to Rideau Avenue, that would be phase 1. That's currently in the design stage with EVB. Right now we're probably sitting at 75% design completion with the expectation that we'll be ready to tender that this coming spring for summer construction. We could certainly look to amalgamating phase 2 and phase 3 into 1 year. I think we have, we have good contractors in this area, such as Campbell's, Kavanaugh Construction, Tomlinson, and some of the bigger contractors that come out of Ottawa that could maybe marry up resources and get the project, phase 2 and phase 3 of the project done in 1 year. That might be a little bit ambitious. It's a long stretch of roadway, but could possibly be done. To that point, obviously, if we were to put out a tender with the interest of doing it all phase 2 and phase 3 in one fell swoop, certainly proponents would respond. They would pool their resources and they would get to work and they would get it done. I would suspect that we probably get some good competitive pricing if we went that route. But again, we need to work through the design of phase 2 and phase 3. That'll come on the heels of finishing up the first phase of the project. So I trust that from a timing perspective, it may align, but we'll certainly look at that, and I'll talk to EVB to see if, in their opinion, that makes sense. They're going to know based on the scope of work whether or not it's too much or, it should be phased in over 2 years.
And I guess I just look at it from a disruption standpoint. Phase 1 is minimally disruptive to the neighborhood. A lot of work's being done through an easement and a stretch of Lorne doesn't have a lot of traffic on it. Phase 2 and 3 going up Rideau and then through, I assume King and Smith Falls Avenue, that area is much more residences which would be impacted and traffic patterns be much more impacted. So I guess it's a matter of what's the best solution from a cost standpoint and from a disruption standpoint to the community.
Yeah, I guess irrespective of the resident disruption in the area, we could look to put out a tender that would unfold over 2 years, but we put it all out as one tender, so we could get prices locked in for that subsequent third year, if that makes sense. We could look at it that way as well, and then we'd be locking in one contractor or a consortium of some kind that's going to pool the resources to get the work done.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the updated values for ending balances of the reserves. Water and sewer highlighted in blue shows an ending balance or an uncommitted balance at the end of 2026 of 642,000. Capital projects, it's a very small amount that it shows that we're not overcommitting, but it shows that we're not overcommitting our reserves, and that's what the goal is at the end. So that's that adjusted number from the 1.7 million that would have been in red from November the 24th. Next slide, please. This just shows in the yellow highlight where that amount had been for the trunk upgrade as far as the financial capacity for debt. And it was just about $800,000 in those three boxes with the yellow has been removed. And then the next slide shows how that impacts our overall capacity, our repayment limit. So the orange is the provincial limit on the top, the green in the middle is our ceiling, and the blue on the bottom is our requirements. From November 24th, you may remember that the blue line went over the green line around 27, 28 for a few years, and we were going to be above our ceiling and have to readjust that policy. But at this point, it looks like we're going to come very close to meeting it, but not quite going over it at this point. So we're hoping that fulfills into a point where we don't actually have to adjust that ceiling in the next little while.
Which is great news. Any other questions on this part? On that debt that we don't have to pay back because of that 13.3 million grant, the 800,000 a year, that was spread out over how many years?
That would have been 30 years.
30 years.
Yes, so about $800,000 times 30 is what the residents will avoid having to pay in taxes.
Gift that just keeps on giving. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anything else on this? So do you want to do your summary
Sure.
slide now?
That would be terrific. So the budget, or the mayor's budget, is presented tonight. Sorry, I need to throw that in so we meet our legislative requirements. What we see with that is a decrease of 4.3% from December 8th in the operating levy. We see a decrease in the overall capital budget by about a quarter of the projects that were proposed in November. We see an adjusted amount of the capital reliance on tax-based reserves to an approachable and a sustainable level. We see an increase in grant funding, again, of $13.3 million. And then this point for the for council's information, I think it's very important that we see an increase of approximately $136 for taxes and about $64 per year. Sorry, $136 per year for taxes and $64 per year for water and wastewater for that one average house that we've talked about over the last couple of budgets.
Before you get to what next, maybe we'll go back to our little list. So that's okay. There was it was on the tourism budget, and as I understood the question, we're hiring a new director of economic development and tourism. At the same time, their operational budget for tourism in particular has been downsized from 40,000 to 14,000. And so we just wanted to have that discussion to see, are we setting this person up for success, I guess is the question. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, and thanks for bringing that up for the group. But I also wanted to just point out that we've got the Railway Museum as a potential, and that concerns me on a couple of fronts. One, they asked for multi-year funding. Two, the roof's in critical condition. Three, we've passed the community grant deadline. So we've really put them in a corner if we don't meet them there.
I have that on my list as number
Thank
two.
you, Mr. Chair. I'll stop talking.
No, let's go back to your, is there anything, I'll just see if there's direction from council or if there's a further explanation of if staff understand the point that's been raised and what they feel about that. Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So let me just make sure I've got the right line here. From 2025 to 2026, net, we've gone from 493,546 to 512,628 on the economic development, and 244,873 to 274,449 on the tourism. Now, when we take the 52,000 and the 127,000, so about 180,000 altogether, that's getting moved from the economic development and tourism to the community services, but those numbers are still in this budget, if I'm understanding it right. So I'm seeing a net increase in both of these line items. And in the 8 budgets that I've been a part of now, every year when I look at neighboring municipalities, we spend way more on economic development and tourism than our comparators per capita, or even net if we look at the city of Brockville. And I still don't have a good explanation of, we've been told that it covers different things. It's really hard to do a like for like comparison. Municipalities contribute to the county if they're set up in that system. But I still, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I still don't understand why we've got such a big budget in this compared to our neighbors. So I guess my question out of that is, what percentage of those numbers are wages, and what percentage, if we are going to be projects and non-wage amounts?
That through the chair, I could certainly bring that information back. I could try and calculate really quickly while we sit here, but I would have to kind of take a bit of a run or an estimate at it. But one thing, that the 180,000, it has now been transferred over to community services because there was a reduction in the special events line. So the net between that reduction was moved over to community services. As far as what kind of percentage, I can, for example, why not just kind of do something quick here with tourism on the fly, if that would.
Well, it may be better, because it's an important topic that's come up, that staff take that question and come back with some further explanation.
Sure.
Is that reasonable? Any other questions you want to? So one, there's 2 things going on. One is Councillor McGuire's concerned about the overall cost that keeps rising without a detailed breakdown, I guess. And then also the new dev tourism, will they have that money in the budget to do the job, and the percentage of salaries and benefits as opposed to operating dollars. So if we had some more information on that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, could you just repeat the second point?
Yeah, it was the operational dollars available for the ECDEV tourism department after remove salaries and benefits. Because on one hand, it looks like it went from 40 to 14. Councillor McGuire is also concerned that overall the budget is up for that. We just wanted to, thank you.
Yeah, I guess it'd be more of a detailed review of the economic development tourism budgets. So the variety of line items which will tell us what is left for each activity that the department would be.
Now that we know where their home is and that they've been, right?
Because I guess with when we receive the explanation of what those dollars remain and are used for, from CP holiday train to security for bike nights, all these things, that's only covered a small portion of the things that are happening in town. There's still a lot of budget to cover other items, but we don't know what those items are. And I guess there's still some of that which is going to be housed within community services too.
Okay.
So it's having that insight, I guess, I think, to Councillor McGuire's comments, like overall the budget is still as a net increase, but where are those dollars being spent within the department?
Okay. And so, yeah, rather than do it on the fly. The second one I flagged was the railway and permit tech outstanding questions around, it would add a 0.64% to the 4 that we already have. Councillor Miller's raised and I thought in that discussion we had with the Railway Museum that there was a consensus about supporting them to start putting money on it towards that roof, and it was around 50,000 if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and again, just to go back to Dr. Dober's comments earlier about provincial law says it's a mayor's budget. So I have had more conversations with staff during the development of this. And one thing we talked about was a railway museum item. And my sense is that we had, collectively sort of agreed that that would be part of it. And I guess the question I would have at this moment would be, the assumption was because there was no pure consensus on an increase, there was some 3%, 5%, and I think the director went ahead and used 4 as that sort of middle ground. But to include the 50,000 and potentially the permit tech within a 4%, when feedback was received from each department head to with a variety of potential reductions that got to the 4%, I presume there were other items which were potentially considered that would have brought that 4 down to a lower number, but you're working with the 4. So I guess the question at this stage is, would a reduction from, if we agree on a 4% levy increase, but we want to accommodate the Railway Museum and the permit tech, what would have to change to allow that, to enable that to happen?
The most, we'd have to go back and have a look at what other numbers could possibly come down. So we may be in that historical situation where we're pulling maintenance items down and deferring maintenance projects and kicking them down the road, kicking them down the road basically to another year, increasing the chances of problems that we may end up having to address during the course of the year, emergency breakdowns, and then coming back to council for additional funds from like the tax stabilization reserve, something along that line.
So I guess that's what we have to grapple with here, I guess, is what outcome do we want to see? And I guess probably provide staff with clear direction tonight. When this comes back next week, I presume.
Well, if we're so if we skip right down to the end, what comes next is, and that's okay, you don't need to skip there. What comes next is if council was to say, okay, we're good, we've made a decision tonight, we come back with the first and second reading on the second. If we need to come back with a third proposal, it'll come back on February the 9th. And then we'll look at passing sometime later in February, come back with the first and the second reading sometime later in February.
I should have, as the chair tonight, just acknowledged the hard work that Steph went back and moved that from 8 to 4. It didn't go unnoticed, and there's a lot of effort and back and forth, I'm sure, with your colleagues. So thank you for that effort. So there is at least the tourism review in detail. And there's some question around there was a consensus on that roof for the 50,000. So we want to see that found somehow. And then on the permit tech, interestingly enough, at the ROMA, Rural Ontario Municipal Association conference, there was a workshop which I didn't go to on this topic. But I heard about it after, and apparently the director might know about this, but there's an initiative underway provincially and nationally to create a database of all underground works and a system to keep it updated so that you don't have men and women driving around finding underground services anymore. It's on a database. Now that's probably 2 or 3 years away from being completed, but they introduced it where it was there, and I wasn't able to source that information, but it doesn't surprise me that is coming, given our abilities. And so I wondered if finding out more about that and how imminent it is before we commit to hiring a person in that position full time going forward. So I had that question in my mind, whether this was the year to hire that permit tech or not. Councillor Miller, just, I don't know, I picked it up at the networking.
If I could, Mr. Chair, a couple comments on that. So with the locate permit tech, it's a position that's kind of twofold, right? There's the permit management from our end that we administer within Public Works, and then there's the function of the locate portion of that job. I don't know that I haven't heard anything about this initiative that's coming down the pipe, no pun intended. Interesting nonetheless. However, I would have to say that we would have to have a really, really good, solid understanding of where all of our infrastructure is, inclusive of every service lateral in town. Now, with respect to our asset management plan, yes, we have databases and drawings and spreadsheets, et cetera, that deal with the location of our sewer pipes in town and our water mains, right? So we have pretty good confidence in terms of where all that infrastructure is, including manholes and catch basins and valves, et cetera. We don't have a database, nor am I familiar with any municipality that would, where they have all of their service laterals mapped. So a lot of the times when we get into utility locates, it's not necessarily projects like that the town administers where we go and dig up a street, right? These would be private properties that would be looking for locates to do a private driveway or a building permit application that's been approved for changes to the structure, i.e. the construction of a deck, front porch, et cetera, that we would need to go and locate where those private services are.
Yeah,
notably their sanitary lateral and their water service. Yeah. Most times we would scope that out right out to the mains, to the water and the sanitary main. So I don't know that there's a process that's being talked about at the provincial and or federal level that's going to eliminate the need to have boots on the ground. Not to mention, fair enough, if we had this federal database of where infrastructure is, that's all fine and great. However, prior to the work being done, we would still have to go out and administer painting up that property, putting flags down to indicate where all of that infrastructure is buried.
So right now you outsource that?
No. Right now we have a staff person within the utilities department and water distribution that does those daily locates.
Okay.
For water, sewer, and storm.
And you're wanting to enhance that or a designated person just for that?
Correct. Yes, we currently right now we have primarily I wouldn't say a dedicated person because it does kind of rotate between a couple of staff within the distribution division in utilities, but most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time it's one person. But where my interest comes from for this position to bring it over under the engineering umbrella, I see a tremendous amount of synergy between having a direct connection for that person to say report to my engineering supervisor, Samantha Turner, where we can start to build on much of that database information that I spoke about before. I feel like we could do a great deal more work than we're doing right now, and we could try to bring a lot of that information under the engineering fold. Not that we wouldn't have that availability right now, but we would bring on the hopes would be we would be able to attract somebody that's out in the field that already works in that discipline. And I'm trying to be careful here because I don't want to present such that we're trying to poach somebody.
So this is with a fine balance between maintaining service levels and enhancing service levels. So
really, fundamentally, the interest for me is to free up time for my distribution staff to do distribution work, right? Because we currently have three full-time staff in distribution, and then we rotate some of the other folks through those positions between collection and distribution. But to be able to free up one body to be able to focus on distribution and collection, because we're looking at amalgamating those two positions into one, would be huge for the utilities department.
Okay.
It is a burden to have to go out and do these utility locates on a daily basis. It takes us away from the other field work that we have to do.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the, so it sounds like we the last one, and we'll come back to a summary, is the Lombard Abbott Gateway. My question on that is, how do you know a budget line when we don't know what the gateway feature is?
That's a great question. So it's sort of a placeholder because we've done some high-level design, which I'll be presenting at some point in the relatively near future. We're doing a fit-up right now, and the high-level costing has come in under $110,000. So the intention as well is to not necessarily in a one-and-done shot over time. So we've been trying to upgrade it and make it less like a vacant lot over the last couple of years, and we'll continue to do that and beautify it as it goes on. So the intention is if we need more, then we'll come back and ask, but this will get us to a place that's livable for the next couple of years. So.
Now, the only teaser we had was that potential electronic gateway feature. And when you're coming down Lombard, all you have is electronic in your face flashing signs, which
You
is
say
great.
electronic like it's a bad thing.
Well, too much of anything is a, so that's really where I was going, is that what if the will wasn't to go with something flashy and electronic and something.
Well, so
Different.
if I may, the will isn't necessarily that we are going to go with that. So my intention has always been to sort of provide a couple of options. One of the suggestions was that we talked about with a number of folks a couple of years back was around a community message board, something like that. And so that's the intention. It's not meant to be a flashy sign like across the street or the McDonald's sign that may or may not work in certain situations. So the intention is always to have been be consistent and sympathetic to the heritage space, be consistent and sympathetic to the fact that it's right next to, unfortunately, a piece of land we don't own, but that can connect to the canal, and to be sympathetic, I think, would be the term that we're looking for. I think it's also recognizing there's been some suggestions around maybe it's a fountain, maybe not, because it's also a place that collects a lot of trash and we don't want to have to clean that out all the time. Maybe it is an LED sign that's something that's encased in something that's similar to the gateway feature of the signage that we have with the locks and the doors, maybe something not. Maybe an art piece, we're not sure, but there's some capacities there. The fundamental space, though, is we want flowers, we want color, we want trees, and that's a piece that we're starting with. So that's where we're at.
So if we didn't want to bump the rate increase above 4%, and we wanted to do the railway this year, your budget item is 50,000, and we would put off a gateway feature.
So if I could through that though, what we are doing so that right now, anything that we've done can be undone. We haven't, the money that's been invested in that space is actually to grade it, to get it to a space where we can do plantings. We've invested a significant amount in trees. The other stuff can be moved, it can be restructured with relatively, not no cost, but relatively little cost, and that's kind of been the intention. So we've been working with, so Rob Gamble gave us some support to design something that will bring the downtown flowers into that area for this year. So it's not going to look as though it does now, which I believe, I've heard the term ugly. It is a bare flower bed at this point. There will be flowers that will be reminiscent of the nodes and things like that. So we could get away with another year if we had to. I would feel very personally offended if you took that from our budget line, of course, but we can live with that if that was something that council wanted to do.
None of this is ever personal.
No, I
Councillor Miller.
Yes, I'd hate for you to feel sorry about that, but I would support deferring that a year, and I look forward to seeing the flowers. But since you're standing there, if you
Sure.
don't mind, Mr. Chair, and then
Yeah.
that's my last question. Our splash pad,
Hmm.
how is it holding up? I don't see a budget line item for that.
Oh, you just manifested that, didn't you? So if I could, we were able to contact the manufacturer last year, and they called in some good favors for us. Our primary concern when we closed the splash pad was that there was a number of different concerns that all sort of welled up at once, or I guess they didn't really well up. I think that was part of the problem. And so in speaking with the manufacturer, they were able to call in favors from across the country and get purpose-made fittings that fit the structure that we had, so we didn't have to replace anything or dig into the concrete. They've given us a time frame of about a year or two, so we've bought ourselves another couple of years, hopefully, with that splash pad. We've upgraded a few of, obviously we instituted some new water blasters. Those are new off the shelf. Like I said, they were called in from across the country, which was very helpful and very quickly, I might add. So I have great appreciation for the folks that were supporting us there. We did turn off one piece that was leaking, so that's fine. We don't need to worry about that. It's not going to be perfect. There are still some concerns. The way that the drain is actually feeding into the main is at an angle that's not necessarily conducive to good drainage. So sometimes there will be a little bit slower and things like that. So there will be some concerns that we have to live with. But for the most part, it's going to be a really good year, knocking on all the wood I can find. But yeah, so we've been able to hopefully give us another couple years out of it.
Anyone else? I'll just go back and do it. Yes, Director Gower, please.
Thank you. If I could, through the chair, just to come back to your question or comment about, with the Railway Museum coming on, would it knock the project off? There are two different funding sources, so no. The Railway Museum would be on the tax levy. The Gateway sign would be a use of tax-based reserves, so the two different funded, and therefore one a change in one doesn't necessarily reflect a change in the other.
Thanks for that clarification. So what I've heard is that we'll get a little deeper dive into the tourism economic development budget, and right?
Yes.
And that would come next couple of weeks.
We were originally anticipating February 9th, but had information from the clerk that we could have that information together and have a special committee of the whole on February 2nd in order to try and drive the budget further along, keep it rolling.
That would be great. And there was the question about the Lumberton Gateway feature. There's some money placeholder that would come out of reserves for that. So that's fine. I'm looking, and we'll have input into whatever that's going to be. And then this next one was, do we want to go above the 4%? We probably don't, but if we had to, it's for the permit tech and for the railway donation. So I'm hearing consensus on the railway donation of 50,000, and I'm seeking input on the permit tech position, because unless it can be found somewhere else to keep us around that 4%. Mayor Panka?
Yeah, my preference would be at 4% or very close to it. And I appreciate staff have done a lot of work to get us to this point. And from a prioritization standpoint, the permit tech is still sort of still simmering there, hovering there while we it survived the cuts that happened thus far to get to this point. So I recognize it is a priority, and I guess the question would be: is there something else that could give to enable that to happen? Would be my preference. I want to end up around either the 4 or very close to it.
Okay. Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. When I think about the CPI for 2025 was around 2.4, I think, right? So for me, I'm still closer to that 3% or less is where I want to see it versus 4% or slightly over 4%. For me, without better explanation, that economic development and tourism line is ripe for some cutting. I'd like to see, there's other areas too. I'd like to see, it's hard to understand the difference between, because I could name off some capital projects that wouldn't be a priority for me, but because it's not a like for like amount, it's hard to know what the impact would be. So I guess my question is with the reserves, we've got surplus amounts coming up from 2025 and we're taking money out of reserves for 2026. Excuse me, where are we at in a net on that? Are we putting more in than we're taking out? Or when we consider our surpluses from this year?
So to answer your question, we did see some surpluses, and as far as through the chair, based on the information on since I've been here and what I've observed, we had some surpluses in 23 and 24, which was reported back to council. 25, we're not at the point to be able to decide that, as I've been short-staffed. I haven't been able to get going on the year end. My whole focus has been on the budget, and will continue to be on the budget longer to be able to answer this. So it's the amount of work that would be involved to say we're going to have a surplus would be, I'd have to drop the budget and do this, and then we come back to the budget later in the spring. You see what I'm saying? Like I just don't have the capacity to do both at the same time. I don't believe, and from the budget monitors, it did not look like we were going to be running that risk of not having a small surplus. Certainly not what we saw in 2023 and 23 and 24. But I believe we will have a very small little surplus. And the policy says that any surpluses go to the tax stabilization reserve with a cap at 20% of a municipal levy, and then the rest is to go to the tax-based reserve. Keeping in mind that any sort of surplus within water and sewer go to their associated capital reserves as well. So yeah, to your answer, yeah, there are surpluses that do go in there.
I guess, sorry, through the chair, my point of it all is that if we're putting in, we're taking out of the rate stabilization reserve, depending on how much we put in, I'd be more comfortable taking a bit more out to keep the tax rate low. But if we're taking out more than we're putting in, it's just, I don't have a good idea of how that's tracking or how that's working.
So Councillor McGuire suggested his comfort level at 4 or a little above 4 is not there. The mayor presented this budget at 4, perhaps 4.64, and he has already expressed his support for around 4. So I'm turning to my colleagues to say the Councillor McGuire camp around 3, the 4 camp, which is what staff have brought forward. So I'm seeking your thoughts on that. Councillor Quinn?
It'd be great to come in under 4. It would be. But I'm looking at all this money that we have to spend. So I think I could live with 4, but not over 4.
Okay.
And thank you. And I am comfortable with 4 or a little bit over. 4.6 is fine. I think we've given direction and asked some good questions, and I look forward to the next draft.
Yeah, and I too am comfortable around the 4 or just slightly above. So we have a consensus on the overall number that staff have brought back with some more information to come. Is there anything else does anyone have any, Mayor Penk?
I think it's an absolute confirmation of support for Railway Museum to accommodate that within.
Yes.
Okay. So if you don't mind, through the chair, if I could just recap to make sure that I've got everything. We have a range from 3 to 4, or just over 4 from council.
No, the consensus was 4.
4.
If we have to go over just slightly, then
okay. So we'll look at 4. The Railway Museum contribution is on the table. I'm seeing heads nodding. Okay. The locate permit tech, and the reason I ask this is, if we were to accommodate and bring some funds down to it, but that council were to decide they didn't want that, it would be a shame to take away some maintenance activities for something that might get taken off. So is there some sort of consensus for the locate permit tech?
Rebecca?
Yeah, I think let's leave it to staff to determine, we need to get to the 4. How do we do that? So is it, if we don't, if we defer the locate permit tech, then that gets us much closer. If that is really a bigger priority, then maybe within the public works budget, there's something else that could be reduced to accommodate that. So we'll leave it up to, my opinion anyway, staff to figure out for prioritization what should be accommodated, what can wait.
Excellent. Thank you. If it's okay through the chair, if I could just ask a couple more questions.
Yes.
With the capital budget that was prepared, are we okay to move forward, to start to move forward with that and come back with first and second reading on the capital on February 2nd? Were there any controversial items, or are we able to move forward?
I didn't hear any controversy around the capital budget, and I'm looking to see if there's anything outstanding. Councillor McGuire?
For me, same as I brought up in the first reading, for the business case for the water tanker, I know there's one in Montague. I don't know how the different organizations work, but obviously there's a need for Drummond North Elmsley. We have an automatic aid agreement there, but the part that I think, and I noticed it in the comments too of the feedback, is that now that we've lost our automatic aid agreement with Rideau Lakes, the significant amount of the revenue that was paying for these capital investments to maintain a lot of this stuff is gone. And for me, I don't have that business case understanding of how many properties are being serviced, how many structures are being serviced. Could we get into an automatic aid agreement with a neighboring municipality for less money? Because we're looking at a huge capital investment that's going to then need the maintenance costs. We're looking at structural changes to our fire hall, and it hasn't been examined by committee or council at a level that makes me comfortable, an understanding of why it's a good investment in our budget. So would you like the chief to speak to some of that, or? I've asked for that before, so I don't know if there's a consensus.
So good evening. Through the chair, the questions that were raised before were the total number of hydrants within the town, which is 399. The total number of hydrants that are red is 10% of that. The total number of hydrants that just get above the red is another 10%. So you have 20% of the municipal water supply in the town that has a very low water supply. That does not include the areas that we talked about that currently don't have water, out through Lawrence Street. The automatic aid agreement, if those answer your questions, the automatic aid agreement, we have an expectation that we enter into an agreement that someone else provides a level of service. Every single agreement will tell you if they're committed at a call, you get no service. So what we're doing is we're leaving ourselves open. We've got a vehicle that's 35 plus years old. We've got a commitment with Drummond North Elmsley under a current automatic aid agreement. We have a provincial agreement through the Mutual Aid Association to provide reciprocal service to our surrounding departments. We currently can't do that with the current vehicle that we have. With regards to the fire hall extension, 2016, the Dillon Company came in and did a total assessment of the fire hall and the operations. They found in 2016 that the fire hall had outlived its life expectancy in 2016. So we're dealing with a building that's been deemed to have outlived its life expectancy. There hasn't been a recommendation to build a brand new fire hall or an assessment to do that. I've reached out to Dillon regarding that report and have yet to hear back. So the replacement of this vehicle provides a level of protection based on the level of service that council approved for this municipality. It's also a backup vehicle that we currently don't have unless we're going to send a $3 million aerial truck down narrow streets with 200 gallons of water on it instead of 2,500 gallons of water. With still limited ability to extract that water from the current hydrant system that I've just talked about. So in my professional opinion, my personal opinion, coincides saying this is a needed vehicle. It's long overdue. We need to equip our firefighters with the equipment that they need to do their jobs. If we're looking at different styles of equipment, or if council's looking at bringing a mandate across the corporation saying we're going to buy used vehicles for every other department, then we can certainly look at that, which would be a huge cost savings. The problem with buying a stock vehicle, and I've looked into that, and I've had experience with that with surrounding municipalities, is you'll buy a stock vehicle at a third less than the value, and you'll spend more than that outfitting it to meet your specific needs. If you're going to order something, order it to meet your current needs and future needs. You don't buy a base vehicle and try to retrofit it to meet the current needs. We have a growing municipality. We have increased number of subdivisions that are going on, as well as the surrounding areas. So based on that alone, that's why this tanker has been requested over the last 5 years. It's been deferred over the last 5 years. We put money towards it over the last 2 years. It's now time to turn around and get the vehicle to provide the level of service and protection that the residents have come to expect. Certainly the survey is an example of that, where they've listed the fire services number 2. So there's an expectation there that we could provide the level of service that they pay for.
Thank you. Is there any other questions that we shouldn't, within there, it's budgeted for? Councilor McGuire's questioning it. Is there a consensus that we move ahead? Councilor Quinn and then Mayor Panko.
And I'm listening to what the chief is saying, and after we talked about this previous council meetings, I did some investigating and I talked to a few people, and I did not realize we do not have fire hydrants out along Highway 15 where all the auto sales are. There aren't fire hydrants out there. So I'm a business selling cars, and all of a sudden I realize, wow, I don't have that kind of protection. We also don't have fire hydrants on Lawrence Street, and we also don't have fire hydrants out in what used to be the Gallipo Center that has now been purchased, and I know we'll be moving forward and expanding. So we need to think about providing them with a fire service as well, and there are no hydrants.
So you're supporting the purchase of the pumper?
Very definitely.
Mayor Panko, then Councilor McGuire.
Yeah, I guess just regarding the limited pressure, certain parts of town for certain hydrants, and maybe it's a question more for Director McMonitor between the two of you. How much of that will be corrected once we have upgraded the main trunk lines and we have more adequate pressure through the whole distribution system?
Yeah, through the chair, we expect that there will be some very marginal changes in a lot of the areas of town with respect to areas that the chief noted to have red hydrants. It isn't so much the hydrant that is the issue, it's the distribution mains within those areas of town. We do have distribution mains around town that are still 4-inch, a lot of 6-inch, and then we go up from there to 8 and 10 for much of the newer mains in town. The older ductile pipes and cast iron pipes are subject to what I like to call getting all barnacled up inside. They get deposits inside. That's why we have to facilitate hydrant flushing on an annual basis. We put out those notices to residents of dirty kind of rust-colored water that they might experience, but it doesn't get rid of all of that. It helps to open up some of those lines and get better distribution for servicing homes with potable water and for fire protection, but it's not a full answer to try to correct that. So to answer your question, it's a lot of 4- and 6-inch mains around town that are restricted flow inside.
Okay, thank you. Councilor McGuire, you have another question or comment?
Just a comment, because it came up in the feedback and it came up in Councillor Quinn's comments, and I want to make sure I understand it correctly. With Smith Falls Fire Protection ends at the Walmart where the water service ends, and Vrito Lakes begins where the water service is not existent, and because we no longer have an automatic aid agreement, we're not providing fire service at Highway 15. Is that correct?
No. What Councillor Quinn, through the chair, sorry, just to be clear, Smith Falls provides fire protection service on the east side going out, which is the dealerships, but not on the west side past Napa Auto Parts where the hydrant ends.
So half the street gets covered.
On the left-hand side is unprotected,
Okay.
and the boundary line ends at Napa Auto Parts on the west side. So that's where the last hydrant is. Walmart, Napa, right there where you go in the corner there.
Okay, so we're covering, makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Councilor Miller, do you have a thought on the pumper?
I'm fine to go ahead with it. I think my concern is, we put 200,000 aside for it last year. If we did it this year and put some aside, that'd be fine too, except we're not here to make sure this gets done next year. So I really think we just have to bite the bullet and do it.
Okay, and I do support the purchase of that pumper so that it stays in as is.
Through the chair, we'll be going through the proper tendering and we'll be very selective. It's aggressive right now based on what's going on. My biggest fear and concern is the longer we wait with the instability south of the border and the impact it could have on us, certainly could impact the replacement of any piece of equipment we got, whether it's fire, public works, or whatever it may be. So it's a crucial piece of equipment.
Thank you. Anything else on we've provided direction, and I think we're close to staying on schedule, and we'll get some more information, and we're going to have a special cow next week to deal with this.
And if I could, through the chair, one of the other pieces that's crucial is the water sewer rates. I know we had talked about bringing that information forward. We wanted to have the discussion tonight to say that the standard increase, or what was from the last water rate study for the 5.5% increase for water and 3.5% for wastewater, in order to move forward with that, we'd like to move forward with it from a billing perspective. Right now, we're currently holding the bills in 26. We're looking to pass the bylaw on February 2nd so that we can release those bills and move forward. If we do delay till the 9th, we'll have to release those bills on the 2025 rates and then look at having less revenue with the water and wastewater. So we're hoping to be able to move forward with that.
Thanks for reminding me about that. And if I recall, it's about average $64 a year for the average household.
For that one average household, really depending on how much water usage and that's other factors.
Water and wastewater rates at the recommended levels, Mayor Panka?
Well, again, as we've discussed a few times around here, we are in an unusual position where we are providing such a heavy subsidy from tax rates to the water rates. And yeah, there's same people, same business paying the bills. But understanding we will be discussing this further this year, some point in time we'll have the study, we'll have the insight. We know no matter what, we have to make a move, and whether that's the next council decides to do it all at once or whatever, I'm comfortable going with a bigger water increase, which will then have a positive impact on the tax side and move us closer to sort of self-sufficiency of the water system. Even though we would need a 20% increase probably in order to wipe out much of the subsidy.
Mm-hmm.
So even some increase, I guess that's closer to where we should be. And again, it's still recognition that it's all coming out of the same pockets, but we stand out across the province as a very unusual position of using so much tax revenue to support water rates. So I don't know what the right formula is. I know what our water rate study is what we're utilizing now to determine the proposed increase, but it's still very heavily subsidized.
Yes, Director.
If I could, through the chair, great input, and I think that's a great direction forward. We will. Hempson is in the midst of starting up their more in-depth study. I'm thinking it's going to be probably the beginning of Q2 before we get there, which will give enough information to have the discussion. and then look towards some directions for the 2027 budget. And I'm not sure how much information that we have to make the decision, but if council would like to increase it more than the 5.5 and 3.5, we can easily make those changes for the next meeting.
No, I was comfortable with the staff recommendation. It's also something that council has been working on for the few years I've been around. We have been keep working towards this, having water, pay for water, and so.
But for me,
Yes.
but during that time, the actual subsidy's gone up.
Yes.
So we have not increased the water rates enough. The subsidy's gone, I think, from somewhere around between 600,000 and 700,000 to around the million mark. And part of that, I think, is just the cost of operating the water system too.
Mhm.
If I could, through the chair, a lot of that has to do with the review of the information and the complexity that comes by the fact that at some point in the past, and not certainly not just Smith Falls, did the combined sewer. So you've got the storm sewer and you've got the wastewater sewer, one inside of the other, and it's realizing what the costs are in separating them out, because stormwater is considered a part of public works, whereas wastewater is considered part of the water and wastewater. And that does add a level of complexity to it, and why in the 2 years that the two budgets I've been here, we've seen more come over to the water wastewater side, and unfortunately bring that subsidy up as the mayor has pointed out, which is absolutely correct. We believe that we've captured all the costs now, that we've identified what all of those pieces are. So I think we're in a good position to now say we have captured those costs. Now we know what the true amount of that subsidy is. So when we do the study with Hepson and come up with those final results, we should be able to come back with something that council can understand and relate to the public. As far as how does that relationship work between the water and the tax bills?
So support for the staff recommendation on the water? Yes. Okay. So that's your final, and we'll be back next week for a special cow, and then hopefully on the 9th, you could be close to wrapping this up with the new information you'll bring back.
Yeah, and if I could, through the chair, so with our revamped schedule, we look at the special cow meeting on the 2nd, and then add a council meeting to the end of committee of the whole on the 9th to do the first and second reading, if that's acceptable with council.
Yeah. And thank you again to all staff for their work on this. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we're moving on to item 10.3. I don't know who's speaking to it. Director Dauber, don't go away. This is a note to council, or a report to council from C.M. Morris, which Director Dauber is going to walk us through.
He's not on.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to council. The purpose of, and some part of it, I apologize, but part of it I'm going to read a little bit off of the report. The purpose of this report is to conclude the outstanding litigation matters against the town by entering into a settlement agreement with the parties to avoid litigation. So it has to do with development charges and historical agreement, and staff believe, staff are coming forward with a settlement in the litigation. That we believe that it's in the town's best interest because it provides certainty and finalizes the outcome, as well as protects the town from unknown legal costs through the litigation. I would be happy to answer as best I can any questions that council might have.
And I note that it's been through our legal counsel director, through your office, and our insurance as well.
That's correct.
Any comments? Staff or committee is supporting the staff recommendation? And I'm seeing nodding. Yes. Thank you. So that'll go forward at a future council meeting. That brings us to committee board external organization updates. So none. Information. We do have an email from Councillor Brennan. He notes that he is, as everyone knows now, he's on a suspension period for 45 days. Councillor Brennan has made the decision to donate the equivalent of 45 days salary to help paint the Heritage House Museum as part of a donation as a way of giving back. So that's an information item. Is there anybody want to comment on that? Okay.
Please accept.
Councillor Berard?
I don't, I think in hindsight, after looking of how we dealt with it 2 weeks ago, we've got a process that involves the integrity commissioner. We've got a process that that's more formal and it is more costly. But after seeing the public feedback of how it was received in the community, a lot of negative feedback that I've received over the last week or two about it, I don't understand why this is happening now, but anyway, I guess it's I guess in hindsight it goes to show, or the thing that I take away from this is it's better sometimes to follow the process, even if it seems like it's an easier way to deal with it or a more civil way to deal with it outside of the process, because it just I don't to make a tax deductible donation on something, it just it doesn't make sense to me. And it's as you go through the process, if the NIC makes a decision and they say, oh, this is what it's going to be docked, then it goes back into the municipal coffers or not. So I guess that's my takeaway from this experience.
Okay, thank you. That was an information item, and thank you for your comments. The next item is 12.2, the Edwardsburg Cardinal St. Lawrence Region Energy Task Force. It's I do know that Ontario's booming. The demand for energy is increasing, and I think that region, Edwardsburg Cardinal, is just expressing their concern that the risk of future economic development because of the lack of hydropower. And there's a sense in that area that they would like to take greater control over the planning and feed into the IESO. So that is for our information, unless someone would like to carry it any further. Saying not. Okay, thank you. No notice of motions. Recommend that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:57 and stand so adjourned till the next duly called committee meeting. Moved by Councillor McGuire and seconded by Councillor Miller. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.